This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Hey, what's up, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions and answer them here in video format. A ton of questions to get into. First question comes from Hopeful Browns fan who says, why do you think the run game worked against the Jets last night? Was it just pure willpower? Ford had a few good cutbacks, or was he just playing at a higher level? This is something I've been hitting on a lot with the run game. I think people misunderstand what the issue is with the run game, and I think the issue with the run game has simply been rhythm. It just has not been able to maintain rhythm. Now, part of this has to do with injury. Another part of this has to do with just the amount of changes that you've made to the run game. But the run game in itself, it just has not been able to consistently sustain rhythm through long periods of multiple games. So you'll have a game like Baltimore where the Browns feel like they can run the ball at will, or a game like Denver where you feel like the Browns can run the ball at will. And then you'll have games where it feels like the Browns can't manufacture anything. And, we'll blame individuals for it, but I think it's more or less, it's something that's been happening since the beginning of the season, quite honestly. Even when they were healthy, is that we're just out of sync in the run game. Like, we're just not on time like we usually are. There's a miss blocked here, or somebody gets there a little bit too early. Just real small details that just aren't in sync with the run blocking that leads to these very streaky, inconsistent performances from the run game. So I think that's really it. I think we just have an inconsistent run game. Some games they'll be able to run it well. Some games they won't. I don't know how much it has to do with the opponent more than it has to do with the Browns' ability to just find that rhythm for whatever reason. But yeah, they just have struggled to find that rhythm in the run game. And that means just pulling guys, getting out on time, or guys getting to their spots at the right time, just not in sync, right? When you watch Nick Chubb run the football behind his offensive line in like 2020, it was like poetry in motion. Things would just happen right on time perfectly. It's just not been like that in 2023 for whatever reason. They just haven't been able to find that rhythm. But that's what I would attribute it to in the long run. The next question comes from Timmy P, who says, should we just start the starters down for the last game, or is there more to play for? Will this change if the Ravens beat Miami? If the Ravens beat Miami, no doubt they're going to bench all the starters. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think they're probably not throwing out specific guys regardless of what is or is not on the line for the Cleveland Browns. I don't think Amari Cooper might play, but Elijah Moore most certainly will not play. Anybody who's had a fringe injury, so guys like A-Walk, not going to play. I will see they might give like Okoronkwo some limited snaps. Miles will probably play. Like, if you just go back to the week 17s of years past, it's probably going to be a similar roster to that, right? The year I would go to is probably 2021. Look at the guys, look at the positions in which they bench guys and did not bench guys because they needed it in certain areas. So yeah, I would expect that you see a mixed group of guys out there. It'll kind of be like the preseason. Like, it'd be like a third preseason game roster where they might send Miles out there for a little bit, but they'll give you Za'Darius, Dalvin, and all those guys in the game. They might send, a couple of guys like maybe JOK out there for a little bit, some of the DBs, but like a dude like Denzel, who has a history of injury, probably not going to play. They're going to play it safe. They're going to play it safe for sure, but I don't think they're going to play it so overtly safe that they have no chance of winning that game. If that makes sense. It'll just be a little bit more difficult. The next question comes from Austin, who says, with how well the backup safeties has been playing, Hickman in particular, if Delpit and Thornhill are both back and healthy in the playoffs, do the Browns find some snaps for them or particular packages? I think some of them are going to have to play because still you're trying to replace what Ronnie McLeod does. You also want to have options to throw at the DB spot if you lose like a slot corner or something like that. But it's mainly going to be depth, right? We saw Ronnie Hickman play with Juan Thornhill this last week, so I think they're going to find some spots for him. DeAnthony Bell probably going to be the one that kind of has to. Well, I think DeAnthony Bell probably gets moved to like a Ronnie McLeod role, or maybe they kind of adjust. But they have a lot of options to play with. Is my point. I'm kind of getting all jumbled up in making this point, but they have a lot of options to play with. And the more options, the more answers you have to go to if you're Jim Schwartz when you're trying to find answers against opposing offenses this year, the better it will be for the team overall. So that's kind of the mindset that I think they're taking into this. But thank you for the question. The next question comes from Brandon Adams, who says, how do you feel about our chances if we end up playing the Texans in a wild card round on the road with CJ back? That's one matchup I hope we can avoid, but I still like our chances against anyone. Go Browns. Here's the thing about the playoffs, man. There's no avoiding a tough matchup. Even if you play the Jaguars, you're still playing a playoff game. You can't go into the playoffs trying to find the easiest matchup possible. You don't want to play like all of the toughest teams in the NFL. I understand that, but if you play the Texans, it's a team you can beat. If you play the Jaguars, it's a team you can beat. At some point, you just got to play a good team. So you can't be so scared or so strategic that you try to avoid all the best players. All the best teams. You're the 5th seed, which means you get the lowest ranked division winner. And if you win the division, you get the 2nd seed, which means you get the lowest ranked wild card winner. So either way, the Browns are in a position to succeed, because either they have the 5 seed and they're playing the weakest division winner, or they have the 2 seed and they're playing the weakest wild card winner, or they have the 1 seed and they're playing nobody. So, yeah, it's the playoffs. You're going to have to play a tough team. There's no cakewalking through the playoffs, but you got to handle business nonetheless. My man Cedric says, do you think we can continue to turn the ball over and get the opposing team points? We haven't went against a all-around good team since Flacco started. I would say LA was playing really well when we played them. Same thing with Denver, but we lost both those games. And Denver wasn't a game that Flacco started. Do you think we can keep this up against the Ravens, Miami, Bills, and Chiefs? No, you're not going to be able to get away with turning the ball over against those teams. One of the things that I'm encouraged about in the last few weeks is that Flacco's turnovers have really kind of went down, and the turnovers that he has had aren't really turnovers that came out of process like the early ones did. It just was out of bad luck. The screen pick 6 that he threw on Thursday, that's just pure bad luck. Some of the interceptions that he threw against the Bears were kind of just bad luck. And then one of the interceptions that he had last week were just bad luck. So I think that, yes, they need to turn the ball over less, but I have seen evidence that they might be able to get away, might be able to start turning the ball over less. You have some room for turnovers when your defense is this good. So you don't have to be perfect, but you do need to turn down just a little bit. The next question comes from Jordan, who says, with Elijah out for multiple weeks with a concussion, do we bring in someone like Jarvis? We could use the juice. I doubt it. I doubt you bring in Jarvis. They would probably like to bring in somebody who's just kind of a name. I don't know if they go after Jarvis Landry, especially this late in the season. We'll see. But he hasn't been with the team, I don't think. Like, if he were on the practice squad, I think this would be a different answer. But he's been on the couch. And look, I know we got the Joe Flacco thing off the couch, but I'm not going to press that button too many times and wait until it busts you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you can only go get people off the couch for so many weeks. And you don't have that much time to get them acclimated. Buzzworth says, Why do you think so many people doubted us? Was it the injuries, living in the past, or just outright not knowing ball? Love to hear your response. Keep up the great work, Q. I think there was a number of factors that I talked about all summer that led into people doubting the Browns. And I think the biggest thing was it was wishful thinking. I think a lot of people got caught wishfully thinking, and this is going to happen next year, by the way. Like once this run with Joe Flacco's up and people start to realize that the Browns are going to go and play Deshaun Watson next year, more than likely, the wishful thinking is going to come back, right? And that's what a lot of this was to me, right? A lot of this was people looking at the Browns roster, realizing it's a good team, but wishing and praying that it's not going to be a good team simply because they don't want to talk about one of the players on the team, given his controversial status. So, yeah, I think it was more wishful thinking than anything. And then you sprinkle on, it's the brand of the Browns, which hasn't been the strongest in the last 20 years. On top of that, and how people love to get these jokes off at the expense of Cleveland, it led to a lot of people digging into bad takes, but not on the greatest foundation. And I think all of those factors kind of led to people doubting the Cleveland Browns, especially this season, despite, all of the evidence pointing towards the contrary to that, right? So I really think that that's the case. I think it's more or less a lot of wishful thinking, a lot of the brand of the Browns, and then, that kind of led into people's trash takes. Local Oreo says, are the Browns the 5 seed no matter what? I believe they are. I don't think there's anything that can happen that can kick the Browns out of the 5 seed, because even if Buffalo wins out and the Browns lose against Cincinnati, they're both going to be at 11 wins. And I believe the Browns have the tiebreaker over Buffalo because they have a better conference record. So they are the 5 seed no matter what. Right now, I believe the possibilities for the Browns are 5, 2, and 1. I think there's a slight chance that they could be the 3 seed. But yeah, I think it's 5, 2, and 1 is the likeliest outcome for the Browns, because, well, no, the Browns couldn't be the 3 seed, because in order for the Browns to win the division, they would have to get 12 wins. If the Browns get 12 wins, then they would be above Kansas City. And if the Browns are above Kansas City, they're 2. So yeah, the Browns possibilities right now are 1, 2, and 5. All right, BR says, who can we realistically expect to get back from injuries for the playoffs? I think you can expect to get Grant Delpit back. Obo Okoronkwo has already made it known that he's probably going to be back. Amari Cooper probably back. And then I'm thinking maybe Elijah Moore, because it's 17 days. So it's a really long time to get back from a concussion, depending on like how serious it was, because it could be super serious the day of and then the recovery is relatively okay. Concussions are just a weird thing. They don't really have a timeline, so we'll see with that. But yeah, you will be getting some defensive reinforcements, right? You will be getting a safety back, which is huge, right? You'll be back to your 2 starters at safety. And then you'll be getting back some more reinforcements on the defensive line, which is huge given how well Alex Wright has played. On top of that, you could throw Obo Okoronkwo in there, and you got a real pass rush. So that'd be interesting to see. Next question come from Kevin. And Kevin says, Quincy, if you were in charge of operations and you would look into the amount of injuries this year and critique your trainers' methods or trainers, I'm not talking about firing anybody, but how would you look into some of the different methods, or take this as it's just football and injuries happen? Yeah, man, it's just football. Like, it sucks that this year you had this many injuries, but if you go back every season, there's like at least 2 or 3 teams every year that have 25 or above % of their salary cap on IR. That's just the truth. Every season, there's always about 25% of the cap on IR. Every season. You can go on Spot Track and check it out. Every season, there's one team or two teams, sometimes three teams that are at that injury rate. This year is nothing out the normal. It just happens to be that the Browns are the team that are at it. I don't think this has anything to do with the training staff. It's just, hey, this is how the cookie crumbled for us, which stinks. But on the other hand, look at what they learned about themselves fighting through this. So that's going to be it for Q&A. Y'all have a great day and have an even better night. Peace.